Hello and welcome to Moth News Live for this Friday. I hope you're well. My name is Keith Walsh. I will be joined in just a little while by my pal Al. As always, thank you very much for being with us this Friday morning. And here is what's making the news, well, what we think is worthy of talking about our news in brief. So, Ireland gets a new Garda Commissioner. It's very exciting. Ireland's new Garda Commissioner, his name is Justin Kelly. And he says community policing will be at the heart of his leadership, along with a focus on rural crime. And he highlighted falling burglary rates, but warned rural communities still feel isolated. All good. It was his comment on drugs that caught our attention, saying eco-conscious people who recycle and drive electric cars are also fueling Amazon deforestation by using cocaine at the weekend. Yes, this he seemed like this was an important thing to speak about. I feel like it was a clever line for headlines, but how much substance is there behind it? I'm going to do a little deep dive into that at the end of the news headlines before I speak to Al. Graham Linehan got himself in a bit of trouble. The Father Ted writer Graham was arrested in London on suspicion of inciting violence after social media posts about transgender people. He was later released on bail. Nigel Farage seized on the case in Washington, telling US lawmakers that Britain has become authoritarian, even comparing it to North Korea. It's another example of how debate can sometimes get pulled to extremes, one side crying censorship and the other demanding silence, while we like to focus on the nuance. So let's look at the nuance. We might try and talk about this with Al, but I do talk a little bit about it with Louise, the poet, in an interview I did with her. She wrote a poem called I Want My Country Back, which seemed to strike a chord with people here in Ireland and also in the UK. So we'll talk to her a little bit about that. The nuance being that I think it's a bit heavy-handed to be arresting somebody for inciting violence on social media, but that's how things are in the UK at the moment. I hope it never happens in Ireland. I think the thing that Farage is doing is saying he's been censored for talking about transgender people, and that's not why he was arrested. He has his views on transgender people. I don't agree with them. Some people do. I don't think it's helpful what he's saying. If he wanted to keep women safe and children safe, he should talk about men and not transgender men. The fact about transgender men, women, is that if a man wanted to sexually assault a woman, he could do it. They're doing it all the time, and they're not really been prosecuted. A lot of the times they're not even been caught. A lot of the time it's not even been reported because women are afraid to report these things. So to go to all the trouble of becoming a woman just to assault a woman, it seems like unnecessary, but that's my opinion on it, and we'd love to hear your opinion as always. Do get in touch with us wherever you're watching it. Just send us a message and we'll see it. Now let's look at Electric Picnic, which was last weekend. Electric Picnic, Coca-Cola hosted influencers in luxury camping. Some of these influencers had previously shared pro-Palestinian posts, sparking accusations of hypocrisy, since Coca-Cola is on the boycott list for its operations in Israeli settlements. So one of the biggest influencers in Ireland at the moment is Garen Noon. He got involved and he said the festival itself is sponsored by Coca-Cola. So everyone who bought a ticket supported the brand in some way. Whatever side of the row you're on, the boycott is rooted in concerns over human rights and international law, and it's a good time to talk about it. So if you did want to boycott brands that are supporting Israel or on the boycott list, Coca-Cola is one of them. You don't have to, but that's your choice. Why is Coca-Cola on one of them? Because they built a Coca-Cola factory on what international law deems an illegal settlement. So it's a part of Palestine that Israel has taken and is now calling its own. It's an illegal settlement, and Coca-Cola have chosen to build a factory there. So people would say, well, that's contrary to international law, and they're not really in some way, are they supporting the genocide? That is the question there, and it's good that these things come up like this. People get to debate them, people get to look into them, people get to talk about them. You've got to make your own choice. Here on Moth, we're not telling you what to do, we're just giving you the facts. And finally, former Taoiseach Leo Varadkar has joined the board of the Institute of International and European Affairs, which is a Dublin think tank. I love that, a think tank. They just go in and think about stuff in a tank. partly funded by the taxpayer, of course. He joins ex-Twitter VP Sinead McSweeney. Interesting. The IIEA says their experience will strengthen its work, but critics ask whether this is valuable expertise or just another example of the revolving door between politics, corporations, and policy. It seems if you make a name for yourself somewhere, you're going to get a big job, and you wonder why these people are kept in this revolving door system and always looked after. I mean, do they have some secrets? Do they have pictures of people that they were, do people feel threatened? We better give him a job. We don't have to tell him the truth. Let's go back to the new commissioner and the drug thing and the statement he made. Let me just grab a drink there for a second. So, Ireland has a new. Sláinte. Ireland has a new Garda commissioner. His name is Justin Kelly. His first press conference, he spoke about community policing and trust and about rural crime, which is all good. But when it comes to drugs, his message was more curious. He says that he sees a disconnect between eco-conscious people who recycle, who drive electric cars, and yet he claims also maybe use cocaine at the weekend recreationally, pointing to deforestation in the Amazon as a consequence of their actions. So let's put some numbers on that. I used AI, my pal AI, to do a bit of a deep dive on this. Okay, so about 2% of Irish adults report using cocaine in the past year. About 4 to 5% of cars on Irish roads are electric. If you put those two together, the overlap is pretty small. It's tiny, in fact. Probably a couple of thousand of people nationwide at most. We're being generous here. And even if you take generous assumptions about cocaine use, the amount of Amazon destroyed by that very specific small group over a decade would be in the tens of hectares. If he like, we're being generous here. Um, but a real drop in the ocean compared to the wider drivers of deforestation, which is cattle ranching, illegal logging, mining. It's just an odd thing to point the finger at and to blame, to try and point the finger at this very small group when there's much bigger things we need to be worried about. Like Ireland's biggest drug problem by far is legal alcohol. In 2023 alone, over 22,000 hospital discharges were alcohol related. The cost to our health services runs into billions each year, not to mention the violence and the abuse linked to heavy drinking. That completely dwarfs the environmental footprint of recreational cocaine use. And on the question of drugs themselves, the data shows cocaine use is rising. So too are other substances, MDMA, ketamine, mushrooms. Many of these can be made locally or ordered online with no connection at all to the Amazon. So the commissioner's comments looks less like serious policy statement and more like a sort of a good, nice PR line to sort of distract from something. I don't know. Just give them a line and that's what they'll talk about. If he wants to tackle drugs in Ireland, the evidence points elsewhere. Alcohol, investment as well in communities, disadvantaged communities would help. Education, treatment, and targeted action on organized trafficking. That's really where change needs to happen. We need to invest in our communities that are in lower socioeconomic areas in our country. That's how you tackle the drug problem. The reason they take the drugs is medicine to help them survive the reality of their lives. And that is the truth. And, it was just odd to me. And it seemed a bit strange that that was the thing that he chose to, hang his hat on, to uh, to focus on. I mean, it just seemed a bit like for a Garda commissioner, it's great that he seems to have some fresh ideas, but then that just seems odd that he would say, well, these people. It seems a bit. I don't know. It just seems a bit old-fashioned or something. It doesn't seem to be in tune with what's actually going on. And it's not like it's not going to lead to a real policy of the Gardaí. It, I just, look, it just didn't sit well with me. So, I mean, good luck to the brand new commissioner and we wish him well. And definitely, I think community is uh, where we have to focus. It's got to be in these communities where um, we look at problems with immigration and we look at you know, disadvantaged communities. And I talked to, in my interview at 1:30, after we talked to Al, he'll be with us just in a second now. After we talked to Al, um, I have an interview with Louise the poet, who is a Wigan poet, and she talks about this kind of stuff. And she's from and always lived in deprived areas, and she talks about how people. We look at immigrants and we look at working class people, and they're both put into the same areas. They're both living in the same communities, but they're pointing the finger at each other, and that's on purpose, really, so that we don't point the finger up. But these are disadvantaged communities, and if we invest in these communities, invest in these people like immigrants, and but also at the same time, there's got to be investment in people who are already living there, and their housing situation and their job prospects and their education, and that's how you tackle a drug problem. That's how you tackle hatred, and that's how you tackle this growing problem, where people like Nigel Farage are looking at it and seeing a place where he can come in to somewhere like the UK. And we all know that the reason he wants to get into the UK is to break up the HSC. So he's got American investors who want to come in and want to sell medical insurance in the UK, and they see it as a huge market. So look, just that's one to watch and one to be aware of. Al, are you there? Come in, Al, and let us know where you are and how you are today.
Hey, Keith.
What's the crack, bud?
You can hear me today. No gremlins today, my man.
No gremlins. Today is a good day. The sun is shining here where I am. How is it where you are, and where in the world are you?
Sun is shining. I'm on a similar time zone to you, so I'm in I'm on the edge of Europe.
I'm just on the edge, to be honest with you. So interesting, a week of news. Now, I know you would have opinions on all the stuff that we talked about there, but I really wanted to sort of talk to you about the stuff that you've seen this week. And let's start with this. This is something you wrote, and I think it's timely, and I think you speak a lot of sense. Do you want to have a chat about this?
Yeah. So, thanks, Keith. So, it's pretty self-explanatory and kind of validates and underpins what we've been discussing for quite some time, right? Which is, the kind of broadly speaking issues within insolvency practice, looking at tech companies, the corporate governance around the tech companies. So in terms of, bad actors being involved in companies that are coming in with investment, they're shareholders. So under the kind of Companies Act, they're not really accountable, fiduciary wise. They can kind of pretty much, there's no caveats for malicious intent. There's nothing to prevent a shareholder from, what would be looked at, which would be looked upon as inside trading, right? And then separately, you have a kind of a myriad of issues relating to post the process, which is, it's very easy to target the founders, the directors, media coverage, mainstream media. They'll publish it, even though the case has moved on. And I'll give you a live example. So there's a couple of publications about myself and my founders in relation to a lawsuit. This is an example, okay? And even though that lawsuit has been unsuccessful in relation to Rocktop Partners, there was still a publication written by the Business Post, the Times, and Independent and the Currency. They published it rigorously. My picture again was used. And even though that case is gone, there's no update from the mainstream media to say, okay, yeah, we did write this, but this is an update, which is journalism, right? So it's like the case has been dismissed. Okay. Yeah. Equally the same as, the defamation case that we had put in, which is a record for any show, right? Within 1 week. Again, that was successfully defended by our law firm. And again, no update on that, even though the very actor that engaged us legally is in the High Court today again, I believe. He was in during the week, and there's a bit of publication on it, but still there is no mention of the cross-pollination between the process that's running now, the actors that are involved in it, which is the liquidator, John Healy, Jeffrey Leo, the same firms are on the peripheral of this thing, right? Okay. And then separately, John Healy then is in the media for his firm being purchased by a company from the US. and that's up in lights. And then there's no mention to say, yeah, but this guy has been removed from this liquidation process that's in the High Court. He's been removed as a liquidator, which is not an easy task, right? Okay. And that must be a credibility issue for the guy. And bear in mind, it's coming out in court that that very liquidation and the purpose of that liquidation was to remove the assets from the owners, the Wennings, up to the value of probably close to $42-43 million. Okay.
And we're talking about people. The Wenning family are Americans who were told by Jeff Leo, let's invest in Ireland. So this is not a good look for Ireland.
It's not a good look. And then you've got an indigenous family, Brogans. Their names actually on the company, Brogan Capital. They were the guys that were involved in this process, no mention in the media. So I just felt, I said, look, I don't do it often, but I felt this time I had to kind of address this head on in terms of, if you break it down, the reality, white collar crime significantly impacts Ireland's economy and reputation as a financial hub. And you will see one of the other posts that we're going to discuss as a startup saying there's no imagination in Ireland. And they sold their company out. Okay, so it's not like we're learning from this, right? It's like it's continuing on.
It's getting worse.
And the white collar, right? Even though that's what we're being accused of, I'm being accused of, my founders are being accused of, right? My wife and business partners. The white collar crime here is using insolvency to corporate raid a company and take the stuff out the back door and blow the people off the map that founded the company and continue on that spot. So we're in the process at the moment, which I can't speak to because it's a legal process, but we've calculated that there's 112 articles with my picture and Neve's picture was created, shared on every medium platform, and it's a startup, right? 112. 75, I think, of them were front page, created by Charlie Taylor, and every time our pictures were used, and even in unrelated articles, our pictures were used, and even if it was nothing to do with us. And then you've got a very high profile case here, and just to put it in comparative terms, even if you took it at its height, when at the time we closed, it was something like 5 million plus of trading creditors. And by the way, this was day-to-day business of a company that had 161 people, right? Okay. Heading for $1 billion valuation. Even at its height, we're talking about 8 times the amount of money that they know of. And there's only one little article published on it, right? And even when they do publish the articles, they don't even bother doing the investigative journalist part to actually write that they have the opportunity to discuss actually what's going on here. Right? And what's happening? A vacuum, Delta, people like us then are stepping into that. This is why we're doing this, right? And then you've got other people who we've brought on, who are called whistleblowers. You've got, Lorraine Morris, who's in an aggressive battle at the moment, right? Niamh is constantly publishing to highlight this, and whereas the mainstream media asleep at the wheel again.
But they're not asleep at the wheel, Al. They're not. It's a conscious thing. It's not like they're lazy. It's not like they're just they're not noticing that this is going on. It's a conscious decision they're making. And the Sunday Business Post saying anything about their journalist? Or are you getting any responses? Are you getting any? How can one startup be have so many stories and pictures published about them when there's a massive there's this huge fraud going on, which where Irish liquidators involved, where there's a huge investment, and Enterprise Ireland as well, and not really, these guys aren't being spoken about, and when it's found that they've defrauded and they've broken the law, they're still not coming back and correcting this. This is a conscious thing. I mean, you're letting them off the hook by saying asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Maybe it's Friday. I'm in a more really kind of reflective, passive mood, right? And we've started to speak a bit earlier, and I am a morning person, so maybe I'm not as grouchy as normal. But you're right. I mean, look, it's malicious, right? It is malice. I mean, look, we've brought in a very experienced pure lawyer who's looked at it and said this is malice. Like there's no other word for it. It's like, publishing stuff to ruin one's reputation with malicious intent and continually doing so without corroborating the story or proving the facts is just
Mm.
malice. Yeah, you're
And
right.
to
I mean,
and to see that there's no energy within official Ireland, within our government, within these departments to right this wrong. Nothing has been done. These things are happening. You've been speaking about it. Neve's been speaking about it. The weddings are looking for justice. These things are actually happening. These are happening
mhm,
in our courts. It's real. You've been proved right, and there's no energy coming from official Ireland to right the wrongs. And I see there you have a list of like things that we need to do. It's amazing that nobody wants to fix this. And it would, if I was a conspiracy theorist, and I don't believe in conspiracy theories, I just believe in things that are happening. And there's a lot of, this is not a conspiracy theory. There's a reason why there's no, there's no drive to fix this. And
mhm.
I can only assume, as a layman, as a man on the street, as a man sitting, at the bar with a pint talking to the fella beside me, I can only assume that somebody's benefiting from this. The people who are making decisions with regards to how we run this country and the financial state of this country. I can only assume that some people are and have, benefited from this. Somebody has pictures of somebody in a compromising position, or somebody's got money in an account somewhere, and that's the only conclusion you can come to, unless these people come out and go, okay, we're fixing this. This is what we've done. This is what until they start doing that, then you start filling in the vacuum with those sort of thoughts. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. And then look, this is slightly slight sidebar, right? You look then at the currency. Our good colleague Tom Lyons, so he got his partner Ian Keogh to write the article in relation to Kirby Healy's acquisition, right?
Mm,
Who was they've widely published the Altada story, right? They wrote an article about the acquisition. Okay, one liner mention, and then you scroll down on their website, and at the end of their scroll down, right, web form, there's an advertorial or an advertisement for Elkstone Ventures leading the charge in Ireland, which is the very company that came back in. I mean, I'm laughing, but it's not laughing. It's actually pathetic. Like, that's the company that came back in that had burned everybody inside to take the deal to try to purchase the exact tech and Altada out of liquidation.
and we,
Into
and we have
liquidation with Leo, with Jeff
yeah,
Leo.
with Jeff. Yeah,
Right?
so there you cannot be you cannot be unbiased if you're taking advertisement money from a company that you should be reporting on, in an unbiased fashion. That it doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? I've seen it. I've worked in radio for 20 years, and I've seen how, if you're getting money from the government, if you're getting money from banks, if you're, there's a reluctance then to, call these people out, and that's the problem, because when it comes to commercial, to media, you have, like it or not, it's difficult not to. You always have one eye on your income. So where's your money coming from?
But
And do we
that's the
really want
point.
to piss these people off?
But they are like the token media outlet that are paid by the very people that they report on, and so it just proves the point. And again, here we are waiting for Charlie Taylor, not a sniff from the guy, right? Okay, about all the stuff that Jeffrey Leo, even though he was advocating him, Jeffrey Leo comes in to save the day, save us from the atrocity of the Altada founder, this scumbags that have created all this fraud in a private company, and here he is up in court, not one fucking wrinkle from the guy.
Mm,
Even to the point where I can't mention the guy, but I did send it on to you. I'm hoping to validate with him. We do have one journalist who has looked at this objectively and has channeled to me through a very good colleague of mine that he's looking at this very closely. Now it's very obvious and very clear to him that these journalists were completely on the take in some shape or form, and that's it. And that's his
somewhere.
wording. I'm paraphrasing, right?
Yeah,
In
yeah.
some shape or form, and it'll all come out in the mix because I'm assuming if things go the way it's supposed to go with Jeffrey Leo, his accounts and everything that he's been doing, his emails are going to be up for grabs. So I'd say there's a lot of people squeaky bum, coining Alex Ferguson's phrase today, worried about, has there been a trail of destruction? Because one thing about Jeff Leo is, okay, he's been called a sophisticated business guy. I'm not here to question that in any shape or form. That's his own business. But what I will tell you is that he's fucking sloppy. And if there's a trail there, this guy thought he's never going to get caught. So you can be guaranteed there's a lot of stuff lying around that's going to be very interesting to get our hands on, right? And the other point as well is...
So people he has paid, I mean, because Charlie Taylor is a journalist, but he works with us on the Business Post. There doesn't seem to be any pressure on him coming from his editor owners to right the wrongs either. So I mean, he can't act alone, as a journalist with someone like the Business Post. There has to be support, because otherwise the editor would be coming down and going, man, you effed up and you need to fix this. So that's not happening. Anyway, sorry, continue.
Yeah, and one of our sources has alleged, but did tell me, and so I'm paraphrasing, that he was aware that Charlie Taylor was on the tape from Jeffrey Leo. This guy is one of our sources, so I'm going to protect my sources, and he's willing to stand over that. Right. So it's alleged. We'll say that just for...
It's alleged, yeah. What else can you can't come to any other conclusion, because he's not doing anything to... Like, he might as well have just had, like, every week, I love Jeffrey Leo, like, on a picture of Jeff and just him with his... Do you know what I mean? It was sycophantic. It was so... it was getting into just being weird. You know what I mean? And
no, it was, and surely, like, he has a selfie of himself and Jeff that he could publish his picture somewhere, right? There's probably a bunch of selfies when they're hanging out together, right? So he could publish his picture if he wanted to.
Yeah, him and Jeff in a jacuzzi, him and Jeff riding a horse, him and Jeff,
But you have to question the logic and the currency, Tom Lyons and Ian Keogh, where they're not even trying to hide it. I mean, like, it's just pulling the piss. So they have an article about the liquidator Valtada. Elkstone was a shareholder that was heavily involved in the process, came in to purchase the company from the liquidation, from that liquidator, and they decided to stick an advertisement of that company at the end of an article that's
it's in plain sight. Yeah, they're not even hiding it at this stage, because I suppose the problem, Al, is the general public aren't aware. They're not going to put two and two together. They're going to read that. They're going to scan over it. It's only the business community really that are going to see that. And then it's only people like you who know the ins and outs of what's actually going on here is going to put those two together. And we have to remember that Elkstone work with Enterprise Ireland, which, they're very, we've spoken about it before anyway, but that's the reason why the public should care. And the public should also care when we see things like this. So explain what's going on here.
Yeah, so look, this is not casting no aspersions or in any way meant in a derogatory way to these guys, right? But essentially this is another startup, snapped up, okay, right? We were offered a deal, we didn't take the deal, we saw what happened to us. So okay, let's speak to it hypothetically. I do know, quite a few founders that have mentioned to me, actually, just even this morning, I was speaking with a guy, that they would look very cautiously at doing anything in Ireland after the way founders were treated, as in myself, Niamh, in relation to what happened with Altada. So that's first, right? So I think this is probably the hangover from that, right? Okay. Secondly, we lack ambition in Ireland, right? What a lot of bullshit. There's loads of ambition in Ireland. It's not the ambition, it's you get the crap kicked out of you by these white collar guys and the investors. They negotiate you down to crappy term sheets, valuations, they short you. It's next, like, you're nearly donating your unborn children to fucking get 50k off these guys. And then you're into the ecosystem where you're swimming with, it's not the enemy outside, it's the enemy within. So it's common knowledge that these guys are going to exhaust the founders. And that's what's happening. It's not the ambition. Irish people, and I've said it many times, we have fantastic people culturally. We have, great inventors, great techies, great business people. But the problem is, if you don't come from the elite circle and you're not able to get the money in the kind of nod, wink, wink, like our buddy, Mr. Drone, Sir Bobby, right? You're fucked. That's it, and you're going to have to be taken out at some stage. And I could only appreciate that these guys said we got to get a result here, or we're going to be an Altada part two. That's the
Mhm.
so when you see a company saying that, and look, fair play to him, he did put it out there. I'm actually shocked that they published it, but paradoxically and contradicting myself, the reason they publish it is because it confirms what we're saying. They
Mhm.
want the truth. These guys are like on a sabotage mission of Ireland, these journalists.
Mhm.
Like, they're never like talking about good stories. There's always a twist in it. The only good stories is when they're talking about their own white collar guys that are the very problem, right? So they put
Yeah.
the problem guys in the pedestal and then they blow the founders off the map. By, like, imagine now you're sitting here today, right? And you're like, you're a founding member of a company and you're trying to capital raise, right? And you're, dealing with people in the US, very sophisticated investors, right? And somebody picks up this article. I mean, like, how stupid are we as a country? Like, if you go into any other country, the pride, the patriotism, even the Irish diaspora, as I mentioned here in the US, flying the tricolour in their gardens, talking about their family, their lineage, and 25% Irish and 57% Irish. And then you hear the Irish slagging them, but at least they've got a sense of pride and patriotism about their country. What are we doing? It's Ireland is a cesspit. Like, Conor McGregor standing at the gates telling everybody, okay, the messenger, love him, load him, whatever, it doesn't really matter. His message is actually correct. What he's saying is correct. They're
Mm.
destroying
We'll
the
have to
country.
agree to disagree. We'll have to agree to
I know, but
disagree.
what he's saying is correct in terms of like, and it's not about his opinion. It's
It's
about
more about, I think that's more about like governing through fear, Al, which I'm not a fan of. I don't, I think that there's definitely things that we need to address. And
mm,
I look, I mean, absolutely. And I know we do sort of disagree on stuff like that, but I
mm,
look, maybe some of what he was saying was correct, but it just, it's not helpful. It's not helpful. But also I don't know who else. I can't see anybody else. And in fairness to you, I can't see anybody else who I would be happy to run for president. And it just seems to be like it's the thing, it's the circus. We don't need it. We need to
yeah.
focus on this kind of stuff.
But the point is, and look, as you said, we always have healthy debates about this, right? But if you go back to the fundamental point that we do agree upon is this only happens when there's a vacuum, when people get a stage to speak to this,
Yeah.
if it's reasonable or unreasonable, when you have a vacuum and lack of leadership and
Yeah.
it's disorganized.
We can
Right?
argue and waste our time arguing about Conor McGregor and what he says is right. But the point is, we don't want to get distracted, because what we need to focus on is this vacuum has allowed a character like Conor McGregor to step in and become the clown or whatever it is. Like, it's like, we just, that's wrong, and that's what we have to focus on, is why is this happening? And if we but what I mean by a clown, I mean, I'm not calling him a clown. I'm saying it's the clown, it's the jester, it's the guy that's coming in that
I think
everybody's going,
Conor McGregor sending me a DM there, Keith. I think.
you'll do nothing. You'll do nothing, McGregor. You'll do nothing.
I'll meet, meet you on
I'm
the
not
other side.
available. I'm not
Yeah.
available. I'm not. I have to wash my hair, Connor. Sorry. But what I mean is, like, that is the character that gets people, like, it divides people. They argue. They spend their time arguing about Conor McGregor, and and we don't spend time looking at the problem on why Conor McGregor has stepped in, feels like he has to step in, has been allowed to step in, and that's what we need to talk about. And it's this kind of thing. And any TD or any government official worth their salt should be picking up an article like that and going, "We lack ambition," and saying, "We need to do something about this if this is appearing, like, this needs to be solved." And nobody really gives gives a flying f. Who would you? Can I just bring you onto something else then, a bit lighter? Who would you vote for at the moment if the president if the election was tomorrow?
Is Dustin the turkey running
Yeah,
again?
I hope so. Waiting for him to throw his feather in the wing, in the his wing in the ring. I can't even speak anymore. Yeah, Dustin would be a good one. I mean, Dustin and Conor McGregor. Have you ever seen them in the same place?
Ooh, maybe on Bosco at some stage. I'm not sure. I'd have
I'm just
to. I'd
wondering
have
if they're
to.
the
I'd have
same
to check
person.
my sources. I'd have to ask my agentic tech.
I'm not sure if they're not the same person. Yeah, look, the presidential
Um,
election is coming up, and we will be talking about it, and we will be looking at it. But in the meantime, I don't know if you've seen this address from our own current president, just talking about the role of being president and what it means. And just for anybody thinking about running for the president, this is what it entails, what the job is all about. And I think he hits the nail on the head. And you'll enjoy this because there's a bit of use of AI here. And apologies to anyone who hates AI.
Good
But
man,
anyway.
Keith.
Cháirde go
Come over.
léir a gcuine úsáil, ladies and gentlemen and folks of other persuasions. As President of Ireland, one must carry not merely the Constitution, but also the teapot and tay fuppa and the packet of digestive biscuits, and, on occasion, the weight of civilization itself. The presidency is not vanity. It is not simply a matter of ribbon cutting or, indeed, ribbon cutting. Though, let us be clear, I have cut more ribbons, these more ribbini, than Julius Caesar crossed Rubicons. Indeed, sometimes I think of myself as the Caesar of ceremonial scissors, and indeed the beanie. But the role is deeper. It is about symbolism. It is about standing at the crossroads of past and future. Sometimes in Burr, sometimes in Ballybuffet, carrying within one's heart the poetry of Heaney and the potholes of Offaly, the Paul Boher of O'Falia. Indeed, the Paul Boher of Assoc O'Falia. And crucially, it is about never standing alone. Every president requires a strong person beside them to whisper, Michael, Michaeline, Michal, Michael T, Michael D, please, not another lecture on Kent. The Girl Guides would just like their badges now. I myself have been blessed with such guidance, indeed sometimes from my wife. And beyond human companionship, there has always been the counsel of my dogs. Siada, now gone to that great garden in the sky. Broad, who trotted beside me for so many years. And Mishnach, whose very name means courage, and who daily reminds me that a republic without digestive biscuits and treats, ganbriski, delocha, is no republic at all. Feeding him in the morning, I often reflect on Aristotle, that happiness resides not in wealth, but in the quiet crunch of morning kibble. Citizens, let us be in no doubt. The true power of the presidency lies not in proclamations nor in vetoes, nor even in the occasional handshake with Beyonce, although that was a good day, but in the solemn act of appearing presidential while stroking a Bernese mountain dog, Madra More Allen, while reciting a line of Yeats, and all the while convincing the world that this, too, is statecraft. For, as Yeats himself did not quite say, tread softly, for you tread on my ceremonial ribbons. Garamila Bahagat Galer and mind the biscuits. Your president in poetry.
I had no idea what he was talking about there.
Wow, lovely poem. Yeah, based on that, I'd say I would take a
Can I
guess
just
that
can I apologize?
the AI went crazy, did it?
It's a lot
You all
longer
right?
than it's a lot longer than I remember. a lot more boring than I remember as well. I actually thought it was quite funny when I wrote it, but
No, it's good.
in retrospect now, I'm like, Jesus. But also,
I,
Michael T
I,
talks a lot of shit, doesn't he?
depending on who's watching, I think you probably just handed the election to Connolly, right? So I'd say that, like, just by that sheer like procrastination, anti-establishment candidate is definitely going to be a shoe in. I'd say she must be the front leader. Yeah, I think she's the only person formalized at the moment, also, right?
Yeah.
And she's
Also,
kind
she
of,
doesn't seem to have any skeletons in her closet, which is the main thing. Like,
yeah,
I think that the thing with Michael D is like, also maybe if you have a skeleton in your closet, no one's going to talk about it. But the thing with Michael D is to just appear presidential is the point. You know what I mean? With a nice dog beside you and talk about poetry and Yeats and all that kind of stuff. That's how Conor McGregor can stand in front of the thing and he can be right. He can be right about the state of the country if he wants. But until he starts talking about Heaney and Yeats and Kibble and dogs and the beautiful and the potholes of Burr and like that, you need to. It's statecraft is what he's saying. It's a show. And he's a showman, and Connor is a showman as well. But he's got to forget about the facts, Connor. You got to find your niche. Get a dog and the fire.
yeah, and look, he's getting the platform, one way or another, and let's see how it bottoms out. But I think it's going to be very confusing for people to see through all of the noise to see who is the actual, and look, at the end of the day, okay, it's, as you said, look, Michael D was like, you know uh, representative, if that makes sense. But I saw some, was it you said or somebody else said to me, but like, he's literally like, what else could he do? He looks like a president. It's probably the only job he could do in the country, right? I know he was
Yeah. The man was
obviously a
born to be
politician.
president.
He was
And
born to be president.
when teams come to Ireland and they're in Croke Park or they're in the Aviva and the Irish president walks out and they see a small man that kind of like they're looking and going, that's what I think the Irish president would look like, a little sort of like, almost like a wizard, a little half leprechaun, half poet, you know what I mean? And you wouldn't be surprised if he had a shillelagh and did it, and a pot of gold, but plays the part, and that's what it's about, because they don't really have any power. And Connor, talks about what needs to be fixed, but he won't really have. It's a ceremonial role, really.
And I don't think we've ever had. I'm open to correction this, but I don't think we've ever had an outspoken kind of alchemist president, right? Before, I think it's always generally been, classed as that figurehead. Obviously Mary Robson and Macaulay did a lot of work, right, outbound and stuff. And they were seem to be very efficient and effective, for Ireland when it was needed. But I don't know. I mean, look, would it have an impact on the public-facing kind of attitude of Ireland externally at the moment, right? Could it be a good PR mission at the moment? It doesn't seem to be helpful. Is my humble opinion. It's kind of like, okay, let's keep thrashing it. Let's keep those publications coming out to get airtime. It's like we're in like self-sabotage mode, isn't it? It's like a napalm death stuff,
Yeah, it feels like we need an Italian 90. We need a Jack Charlton. We need someone to come along and be the figurehead, be a sort of a beacon, some kind of that will just drive us to the future and make us feel maybe better about ourselves and make us
Celtic
want.
Tiger? You mean Celtic Tiger? Celtic Tiger is coming back, Keith? Is that what you're looking for? The Black Panther?
Well, yeah, the Celtic Tiger one, there was no corruption. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's all great.
Anyway,
I
any
found
last? Yeah, go on.
I found the actually one thing that did surprise me, and I'm not surprised often, was the kind of the over and back between Bertie Ahern and the party. I found that conversation interesting. I can't recall somebody breaking rank to that level before. It's kind of like, clearly mapping out, this is when I was notified, this is how long I was waiting. They've messed me about. It kind of, is this a early warning sign of a fracture in that party, right? Like when you've got kind of in the backbencher indigenous guys coming out and kind of saying, hey, my own party messed me about. I don't think I've kind of seen anything quite like that in Fianna Fáil before. Fine Gael kind of do tend to throw their
Occasionally.
guys under a bus occasionally, but Fianna Fáil, I can't recall somebody breaking the party line like that before in Fianna Fáil. I
Yeah,
found that
it's very unlike.
interesting.
It's very unlike Fianna Fáil. It's very unlike Bertie Ahern as well. I mean, he's usually,
Yes,
he's a party man. He always has been a party
he
man.
is.
So yeah,
Yeah.
maybe there's trouble up in top field, as they say in Yorkshire. We'll watch that one with interest, and maybe somebody else will nominate Bertie Ahern, because with something like this, and if you're Bertie Ahern, and I'm not saying. I'm not, an apologist for Bertie Ahern saying he should run or he shouldn't run, or we've all made mistakes in the past. But he possibly feels like this. He could be a president and should be a president, and he's only getting one crack at it, and it must be frustrating if you're not even getting to have a go at it.
Yeah, and then final word is just appalled that the author of Father Ted,
Yeah,
being
Graham Linehan.
Gremlin being arrested, and
Mm.
he created Guan 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 Guan. You will,
He
you
should have
will, you
stuck.
will,
He should have
you will.
stuck to writing brilliant comedy.
Parody and satire seems to get you off the hook, and I'm not sure where it went from escalation of freedom of speech. He's an Irish citizen. The Irish people are not getting involved. There's nobody kind of jumping in to defend him. You've got Farage who's kind of escalating it, but I think it's just it's a bit
I think
bonkers.
unfortunately for Graham, is he's gone down a rabbit hole. I think it's okay to have if it's something you truly believe in and you want to you want to campaign on behalf of whatever it is. I don't agree with him at all in any way. I think he's unhelpful in that space, and I think it's what he says is bad, but I don't think he should be arrested. That's just how it is in the UK at the moment, and that's wrong as far as I'm concerned. But I think that you also do have your campaigns, have your thoughts, do your things, do stuff like you do this, but you also have to go about your work, and you have to manage to do, like, he just seems to have just completely gone, like, unfortunately for him, he's lost his wife, he's lost his family, like, he just completely isolated himself, and I don't think that's ever a good thing, and unfortunately he doesn't seem to have anybody in his corner now at the moment, and that's unfortunate for him, and it's sad. It's sad ultimately, but he I suppose you're generally he's found himself in a situation where he has had a hand in it. It's unfair. He shouldn't have been arrested. But I think it's more about the inciter to violence than the freedom of speech. Anyway, that's a whole other show for another day. Al,
Yes,
as always, great to talk to you. Great to be able to bring up these things. There's always nuance, and people want to go to the extremes. And here on Moth, we try and keep it friendly and keep it,
keep it classy.
Keep it classy. I don't know about that.
Stay classy, San Diego. All right.
I
San
love
Diego.
I love lamp.
All right, my man.
All right, good luck. See you, Al. Take it. Have
Have
a
a
great
great weekend.
weekend.
See
Bye, bye,
you
bye,
too.
bye,
You
bye,
too,
bye.
man.
There you go. That's all. Thank you very much. So yeah, look, I mean, whatever your thoughts are on Conor McGregor or Graham Linehan, or go and find out about it. Do a bit of research and make up your own mind. And it's never as extreme as you think it is either way. But yeah, I'd have my own strong opinions on Graham Linehan, which I won't share right now because I've an interview here. I'm going to play as much of it as I can. We'll get about 10 minutes of it, and then later on I will put the full interview up on our YouTube channel so you can watch it later. This is Louise the poet. Louise the poet wrote a poem called "I Want My Country Back," and I got in touch with her and said, "Would you have a chat with us?" Louise, her poem went viral. It's a powerful piece for tolerance in a time of rising division. So we talked about her poem, her view of the UK and Ireland today, her concerns about the rise of politicians like Nigel Farage, why that vacuum is there, and why men like that are allowed to step in, and what it's like over in the UK at the moment with the flags waving and the painting of the roundabouts and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to leave you with this. I'll say goodbye. Have a watch, and we will see you next week on Moth News Live at 11 o'clock. But stay tuned to the platform because we're always here. We're always doing stuff. You never know what you might miss. Good luck. Have a great weekend. How we came up with it, and tell me about the journey to writing the poem.
Okay, so it was like the bank holiday weekend, and in Manchester it was Manchester Pride. So my eldest daughter had been at Pride, and she brought back a load of like drunken lesbians with her. So I had like a house full of like 19-year-old little cute lesbians. And then on the Sunday, my younger daughter was going to Creamfields, which is like a dance festival, like Chiave, like orange.
Do you think I'm that old that I don't know what Creamfields is?
Well, I don't know if everyone in Ireland knows about Creamfield, because I didn't know about it at the picnic.
Sorry, I'm being too sensitive. Carry on.
It's not personally attack on you or your values. So she's like, orange, big eyelashes kind of vibe. So I took them to Creamfields, and when I was driving back, I started noticing the motorway bridges, and all of the bridges had either a Union Jack or a St George's Cross or an advert for Reform attached. And it made me start to feel a little bit sick, because I thought, who are they trying to intimidate here? This feels like a cat pissing on its territory. It feels like it's about being visible, and it's unpleasant. And I started thinking about more vulnerable people who might feel like really attacked by it. So I felt uncomfortable, and I thought some people might feel really intimidated. So that's kind of the lead up to it. And then on the bank holiday Monday, I just wrote the poem, banged it up on the internet, didn't look at the captions or anything, just kind of did it. And I don't normally share a lot of poetry on the internet. Like, I normally just take pictures of myself performing, and that's it. That's my kind of social media content.
Okay, cool. I'll be.
I'm not really good at it, I don't think. And then me and my mum went for tea, and I was still feeling bad about it. So I said to my mum, who's like in her 60s and got loads of health issues, Mum, how do you feel about after our tea we go around and cut down some of these flags? And she was like, is it illegal? And I was like, I don't think so. I think it should be illegal to put them up, because it's like public property. And if it's any other advertising, if I was trying to advertise my book or a performance or a festival, I'd need permission to put stuff up there. And so I thought, probably okay to take them down. So me and my mum went with these like kitchen scissors, and it was dead hard to get the flags off because they put the cable tie dead tight. But we managed it. And I asked my mum to film there because I was a bit worried. I mean, the footage is not going anywhere. I was just worried that someone would like come up and start like abusing me or like hit me or something. So I thought, I want some kind of evidence that like something's happened, if that does happen, which it didn't. But what did happen was, on one of the bridges, I took this flag down, and I'm rushing back to my car like full of adrenaline and sickness and fear and excitement all at the same time. And there was this lad walking over the bridge who was a person of colour. And I was a bit like, one, I hope he doesn't think I've been putting him up. Two, he's a young lad, and he might not feel intimidated. I don't know his story. I don't know anything about him. I suppose I just kind of went like, hi, and then got back in the car. And then I kind of thought, well, like, what am I going to do with these flags now? Like, I don't need them for anything. So I thought I'll donate them to the Armed Forces Hub, which is a charity in my town, which I've like done some work for him before around veterans and like veteran experience. So that's part of like, that's the beginning of how the poem came to be.
Wow. I mean, I didn't realize that I didn't know you did this flag thing. I missed that bit. So, yeah, I mean, I contemplated myself one night walking through Brighton, and Brighton is not that. Do you know what I mean? I live in a part that is quite, it would be described as a very Tory area, but that's generalizing it as well. But then Brighton is very, multicultural,
cool,
and and it was weird to see the flags like in some houses, So tell me, like, what do you know about why this happened, and was it orchestrated? Was it, what was a response to?
I don't know loads about it, but I can tell you what my understanding is. And my understanding is that it's an orchestrated campaign led by Reform called Raise the Flags or Raise the Colours or whatever. And, you know, someone has paid for those flags and paid for that paint. Someone has delivered those resources to reform councillors and reform supporters and organised to put it up. And I wouldn't be surprised if it could potentially be the same people doing it in multiple areas. Like some of the flags are up really high. So how do you get up that high? Do you have a ladder? Do you have a cherry picker? Like it's the ones on the bridges quite easy to put up. So it's my understanding it's like an orchestrated political campaign, and that the Union Jack and the St George's Cross are being misappropriated, taken as a symbol for reform, and behind reform is fascism and racism and sexism and dismantling the NHS and all sorts of horrible things that you don't want a flag to be a symbol of.
Yeah. And the idea, I suppose, is that you want that these people want, I mean, what they're saying is, you know, in general terms, they want, you know, England to remain English, or, you know, in Ireland, we have it like Ireland for the Irish, you know, and then they're trying, and then they've got to, sorry, my glasses seem a bit wonky. And then they got to prove, they got to explain what it means to be Irish, which gets them in all sorts of trouble. But you know what I mean. And they try and say it without talking about skin color. No, I don't mean that. I mean, you know, culture. I mean, you know, British culture. I mean, so what is British culture? Well, it's you know what it is. So I mean, these people think that they're representing English people like you, but I mean, your family to me doesn't sound like you are. You're an English family. You don't sound like the type of family that Reform are appealing to or talking about when they talk about their country and England and going back to values and all this kind of stuff, like Trump did, and you know, so it's very they've got it very. I mean, who are they appealing to?
These are really big questions, aren't they? What does it feel like to be part of a country or a national identity? So I live in a deprived area, and I've always lived in deprived areas and council estates in areas where basically it's just like poverty, like intense poverty. So, and the way I speak, it's a very working class accent. The way I look, I know I've got a cool haircut, but essentially I just look like a white woman, which I am a white woman. I don't personally feel particularly English. Like I've been born in England and my mum was born in England, but my dad's Scottish. My grandma's family were Irish and came over. My granddad's family were travellers, like Romney gypsies. So my family context is that, yes, I suppose I am English, but I don't really identify with being English. I feel like British feels a bit closer. I mean, ideally, I'd be a hippie and say I'm a citizen of the world and we shouldn't have borders and our flags and we're all on the earth. That would be my ideal stance, but I don't feel like that's going to persuade anyone anything. So when I wrote the poem, I was thinking about people who might be borderline, people who don't really understand why the flag is a problem, and people who may be thinking that there's some sense in some of the things Reform says. So I wanted the poem to be able to speak to, it's not just an echo chamber. So that's part of the reason I called it I Want My Country Back, because I wanted to do a bit of fishing.
Yeah, because people are going to look at it and go, oh, this is going to be nice and racist just for me, just what I like. And then they'll be so surprised. But I do think that it's really important that there are, I love your accent, by the way. I think that it's really important that we have people from lower socioeconomic areas, deprived areas with accents, you know, who are, I mean, I don't even know why I'm saying like proper British, proper English. I don't even know what that means, but talking like this, because I don't think that they feel like, I think there's a fear that if you stick your head above the parapet, it's a very, like in Ireland, it's the same, like don't be drawing attention to yourself. And we kind of had it because of, you know, the Brits, essentially, we had to keep our heads down, not get in trouble and not be bold. You know, in Ireland, if you're naughty, you're called bold. I don't know if you've heard of that phrase. And being bold means, being bold is to speak up or to say something or be too loud. So my mother would have said to me, "Don't be bold," and that means naughty. So that'll give you an idea of what we're dealing with, and it is that idea of people staying quiet, and it's good, and I think it's very helpful to have somebody like yourself, who, for all intents and purposes, as you said, you're an English woman and you have an accent, but you're saying these things that might seem unexpected from you. Do you know what I mean?
I think part of the problem is that it shouldn't be unexpected, but because the right are getting so much media coverage, and because of programs like Benefits Britain and those sort of reality TV things that concentrates on people who live on benefits and stuff, I think they've been demonized as well. And actually, one of the loveliest things about putting the poem out there has been the thousands and thousands and thousands of positive messages I've received from people saying, you are saying what I am thinking. I don't want my country to be like this. I want it to be inclusive. I want diversity. I don't want people to obsess over refugees when we've got more important problems. So that has been really powerful. And that's part of the reason I've continued posting, because I don't particularly not that bothered about doing social media. I don't, it's like the phone's addictive as it is. And I also feel like the relationship between our digital lives and our physical lives is so skewed that it leads an ideal breeding ground for fascism, because people are receiving they're being like advertised to all the time.
The algorithm is, if you look at something, you'll get more of that. Yes.
Yeah, it's essentially like advertising. There's a reason why companies spend millions and millions of pounds on advertising, because it works. So when we're in our little social media bubble, we're being advertised to, not necessarily to sell something, but maybe to like a way of thinking, a way of being, clothing. And because we're not spending as much time physically with other people, then that's what I think anyway. I don't think I think we're that is part of the reason that people are becoming.
We have a society that is partly, we live our lives partly online, and that's a fact. So